Hey, did you guys hear who's off duty sad? I had a party at my house, a shift party, and one of the police officers showed up and said that. I just turned and looked at him and said, "Hey man, we're not going to do that here." And we just kind of continued on with the night. Uh, Later, like the next day, I actually followed up with him and just said, "Hey man, do you know what's happening when you do that? That is how you spread stigma." And then not only is it not fair to that officer who's off, it's not fair to everybody who's there with us at the party because now people will hear you say that and then they'll think, "Oh my God, that's never going to be me. I don't want to let someone talk about me like that. I'm never going to ask for help. No one's ever going to know if I'm struggling." And then they won't ask for help even when they need it. Okay. So really what's happening when that happens is it's a mixture of stigma and cynicism. And those are two crucial things within the law enforcement profession. So we're going to break that down and talk a little bit about both. So first off, let's talk about cynicism. It's crucial. So when you get into policing, you go from this regular civilian, and our default is to believe people. And now you get into a profession where people lie to you all day, every day. If you're a cop and you believe everything that someone says to you, you're going to be a terrible cop. So we have to learn to be skeptical, and then that can really bleed into our whole life. There's a great book called Emotional Survival for Law Enforcement. Got it right here by Dr. Kevin Gilmartin. It's sold an incredible amount of copies. Every cop should read this, and we don't actually yet do it in training. So I have another video on this that you can find. Search that book, learn about it, and honestly, go and read it yourself too. Don't just take my word for it. Go and actually read it yourself. Page 3, he basically has a subheading that says something like idealistic rookie to cynical veteran. And that's what happens to people. They get hired as cops, and then they get just lied to all the time, and our perceptions get shaped by our experience. So then that experience of always being lied to makes us think everyone's lying, everything's BS, and everyone has an angle because all the people we deal with are the people breaking laws and doing bad things. But then we misapply it, especially in relation to our coworkers and other people. The second part of cynicism is actually a disappointment about the job. We often get into policing because we want to help people. And I can speak to that. I've done a bunch of recruiting interviews. Every single person came in and said, "I want to help people." And that's why I got into policing. I wanted to help people. But often we go and rearrest the same person over and over and over again. I had one time I arrested somebody, kind of like the town thief, and we'd arrested her the day before, and we arrested her again the next day, and I held her in custody for continuing to commit the offense. And then one of the bosses said, "Oh, you can't. It's a nonviolent crime. You got to keep releasing her." And I just thought, this is nuts. Like, what are we doing? We get hired to stop crime and interfere with crime. And then we feel like it's not working because we end up back at the same houses dealing with the same people. And it just feels like we're not actually making a difference. So that can also lead to a really big increase in cynicism in police officers. And then the next thing to talk about is stigma. And stigma is just absolutely crucial. To put it in perspective, there was a coroner's inquest into police suicide from 2019, where 9 police officers died from suicide in 2018. And that was the number one, or one of the top recommendations, was that stigma needed to be reduced on an urgent and priority basis. So I actually quote that in my book here, and it's a reason I made stigma part of my title of my book, Setting My Sights on Stigma. Stigma is something we need to work on in the profession. And really, to me, how we do that is we share our vulnerabilities, we share our hard points, so we make it okay for other people to also go through them and to also be able to get help. So chapter number 2 in my book is all about stigma. And I share my own journaling. I have like 40 pages of my own journaling from a time when I was off work on stress leave. And I take a whole bunch of what I wrote and what I never wanted anyone to know, and I put it into this book. So I believed it would reduce stigma for other people, and I thought it would help them. And that's actually a big part of why I've started this channel. I've realized a lot of people don't want to read a book, but they might watch a short little 10-minute video and be willing to listen to it a bit in a different format. So here's part of what I wrote at the very end in my summary of that chapter. Stigma is carried within the policing organizational culture and is passed on from the more experienced officers to the newer officers. This stigma becomes internalized by officers who judge themselves and become worried that others will also judge them harshly. Stigma prevents police officers from seeking professional help, even when they need it. We need to recognize it and continue to shape police culture to reduce and remove stigma around mental health. I actually did a master's degree in leadership, and during that I did a research project into police culture and the impacts on police officer mental health. In that, I interviewed numerous police officers, and the thing I was shocked about was how much stigma they still felt. They said things like that I'll go to a doctor on duty, but I won't talk to a psychologist. And many of them actually said, I want to be ordered to go and speak to a psychologist. Yet those same people have never gone. They can already go for free. No one needs to know about it, but they won't go. And yet they're saying, I want the organization to order me to go. And I think that really shows there can be a difference in message sent and message received. And what they're really saying is, I want the organization to mandate everyone to go so that I don't feel weird going and no one will judge me. And I can say I felt that stigma when I first started going to a psychologist, and I was off work on stress leave with a psychological injury due to my job. The psychologist recommended that I try this treatment called EMDR, which works really good for the kind of trauma that we run into as cops. And I actually just said to him, you can't make me try your voodoo BS. And I wouldn't try it, even though it probably really would have helped me. I felt a lot of stigma. I felt like I'd be a weirdo if I tried it. It's not weird. It's smart. It works. But unfortunately, I wasn't willing because I had so much mental health stigma. So that stigma made it so that I was so hard on myself. It left me feeling like I was so weak instead of understanding that I was human. And I didn't get that. I thought I had to be this emotionless RoboCop. And that's just not reality. We're people. It also left me feeling like I was broken. Like, once I was impacted by all these things, there's just no way to heal. And it left me a victim. Ultimately, I was diagnosed with PTSD. It left me feeling like a victim to it. And I wasn't. I actually had some control in my healing. I wasn't broken. I was injured. And as I started changing what I was doing, it really helped in my healing. So back to that person who's off work, what they need is connection and support. And I was really fortunate. I got that. I worked on a team with a bunch of my best friends, and they even planned a training day to come meet me for lunch one day, and just really made me feel welcome and included. And I think that was a big part of what helped me to heal. So when someone is off, instead of saying, oh, they're faking it, no, they're not. That's not what the stats say. You can go and look at CIPSRT, CIPSRT. It's a Canadian mental health research group up here in Canada. And they show that over 50% of serving police officers would meet the criteria for one or more mental health diagnosis. We don't have an epidemic of people faking it. And even to pull from the little tidbits I see in real life, I've had friends show up and they look terrible for a day shift. And I say, what happened? I say, I didn't sleep at all last night from the nightmares, right? From trauma, basically from PTSD. That's what's happening. We actually have bunch of cops that are, medicating with alcohol or trying to treat themselves in ways that aren't working and are often not healthy, and not getting the help they need because they're worried that someone will think they're crazy or whatever, or that someone's going to, talk smack about them. And instead, we need to create that culture where people can feel supported. So I used to teach a lot of mental health and do a lot of peer support. And one time when I said, my psychologist had told me to go down to the beach while I was off work and just focus on my breathing, just try and calm my body, and just working on my breathing, being in nature. And I said, hey, you might see someone at the golf course. You might see someone out, for a hike or something. And it's not because they're lazy. It's because they're trying to get healthy. And they're not going to get healthy sitting at home in their basement getting drunk. That's probably the worst thing you could do. Getting out and being active and being in nature is what can help. So what I want to leave you with is, what are you going to do when you come across this? Because honestly, you will. It happens. I've been there. And it's really easy to say, oh, I'll do something about it. What about when it's your boss, right? What about when it's there's a power differential? That's pretty challenging, and it's a pretty challenging thing to navigate. But I think we can try and walk that line of, Just say, hey, I don't think we can talk like that. Or just, stand up for what you think is right and maybe educate them a bit. Because often some of the people saying those things are the ones who have the stigma themselves. So let me know what you think down in the comments. Would love to hear from you, and let me know any other topics you'd want to hear a video about. Okay, awesome. Thanks for watching.